Okay, so over the past several weeks now, we've been doing a lot more with the breathing, and I want to continue with that. And I also want to give a little shout out to my friend Norma, who sent me a link to an episode of Fresh Air on NPR. It aired on May 27th. For those of you who listen to podcasts or you want to go online and listen to this, it was really interesting. There was a gentleman who just published a book about breathing, and he brings in a lot more science about breathing. A lot of it you guys know already. A lot of it, you know, we talk about in yoga, so it kind of comes from that. But there's some new information, at least it was new for me, about how we've evolved over the past, say, 400 years to set us up to actually have breathing problems as a species. So very fascinating. So again, it's NPR. It's a segment on breathing, and it aired on May 27th. If you want to tune into that. So again, thanks Norma for sending me that link. Okay, so with that, let's get started and do a little bit of breathing. So come right up to the front edge of your chair. And make sure you can feel both sitting bones kind of equally and evenly underneath you. Sometimes we sit down and we don't realize maybe the clothing gets stuck or your glute gets stuck underneath. And then lengthen from the tailbone all the way to the crown of your head. So think about your spine. Are you leaning forward? Are you leaning backwards? Are you kind of slumping forward a little bit? Can you think about your spine just kind of growing nice and tall? Sort of like the stem of a flower. So it's not like perfectly straight. You know how flowers have, their stems can get a little wonky here and there. And our spines actually have these beautiful little waves to them. They're not supposed to be perfectly straight, but we can get that sense of straightness if we think about the head being perched right on top of the shoulders and the shoulders right above the hips. So if I'm leaning forward, I'm going to turn sideways so you can see what I mean. If I'm leaning forward, what has to happen is I have to compensate by lifting my head. So you can see I've got a lot of stress in my low back, and I've got a lot of stress here in my neck, especially here in the sides of my neck. So I'm just going to bring my body back a little bit until I feel my head kind of resting right on top of my shoulders. And now that feels like everything is a little bit more in line. Okay, so once we've gotten the anatomy into a position that supports us a little bit better, I'm going to ask you to close your eyes if that feels okay. And just notice your breath. So you don't have to change anything about how you're breathing. You simply want to notice the way your body is breathing right now. And you can kind of ask yourself, is your breath shallow or deep? Is it fast or slow? Are you breathing in and out through one nostril more than the other, or does it feel kind of balanced? Are you having difficulty breathing through your nose this morning? And is that difficulty breathing in and out through your nose simply because you're not used to doing it that way, or because you've got some blockages or some issues in your sinuses? For many of us, we breathe in and out using the mouth, at least as an auxiliary to the nose. And it's really important to try and breathe, at least breathe in through your nostrils, because your nose, your sinuses, your nasal passages actually condition the air as it moves in and out. And if it's still challenging to breathe that way, you can breathe out through pursed lips like you're blowing out a candle really gently. So now that you're noticing all these things about your breathing, I'm going to ask you to notice where you feel movement in your body. So as you inhale, can you feel your belly or your rib cage expanding? And as you exhale, can you feel your belly or your rib cage contracting? And this isn't a right or wrong, it's just a noticing. And now let's create a little bit more purpose to the breath. So we're going to consciously deepen the breathing, pulling the air way down into the belly. So as you breathe in, let your belly expand. And as you breathe out, let your belly contract. Again, breathing in, the belly expands. Breathing out, the belly contracts. And continue. And if you're not having any difficulty breathing this morning, I'll invite you to create a little restriction in the back of your throat so that when you breathe in and out, you can hear a little sound. It sort of sounds like the ocean a bit. And the reason for creating this little restriction at the back of the throat is to lengthen the breath. So it takes longer to breathe in and longer to breathe out. And as you're creating that restriction, or even if you're not creating that restriction, begin to add a count to your breath. So on the inhale, see if you can count very slowly to 4 or 5. And the same thing on the exhalation. See if you can count very slowly to 4 or 5. So it should take that whole count to breathe in and that whole count to breathe out. So again, you're breathing in very slowly with a slow count to 4 or 5 and breathing out with a very slow count of 4 to 5. Now, if you find yourself creating tension in your jaw, your neck, or your shoulders while you're trying to do this breathing practice, notice that tension and make a choice to let it go. So relax the shoulders, relax the neck and the jaw, relax the hands and fingers. And just go back to the breath, moving in and out to that slow count of 4 or 5. And again, if you're having difficulty with your breath this morning, you can breathe in through your nostrils and breathe out through pursed lips as if you're blowing out a candle. Complete just 2 more cycles of this breath, this long, slow, deep breathing, counting as you breathe in, counting as you breathe out. And after your second exhalation, release the counting, release the control of your breath, and go back to your natural rhythm. Go back to whatever feels normal to you. And notice if there's been some sort of a shift or change, or maybe just a new awareness of your breathing. And then let your eyes gently open if they've been closed. So as we move and stretch this morning, we're going to pay attention to the breath and the role that it plays, and see if we can invite it to kind of stay present with us throughout. So let's begin with the lower body. We're going to start by extending that right leg and have your heel on the floor with your toes lifted toward the ceiling. So you need to be up fairly close to the front of your chair, not so far that you might fall off, but not back so far that you feel it kind of cutting into the back of your in the back of your thighs. So you want to be right up there. We're going to start with the toes, just squeezing and extending the toes. And have a look at your toes. Notice how they squeeze and how they extend. Do they work kind of independently, or do you have one or two toes that maybe cross over each other, or maybe one or two toes that don't have a whole lot of flexibility, especially in the joints that are farthest away from your foot? And notice your breath. So are you holding your breath, or has your breath become shallow because you're looking at your foot? And then let's see if we can point and flex the whole foot. So moving from the ankle, pointing and flexing the foot, and pay attention to your spine. So have you started to kind of sink down toward your foot as you're doing this? Or can you keep your spine nice and lengthened? And then can you continue to breathe in and out with that nice round breath? I talk about the breath being round, meaning there's no pause, no interruption between the inhalation and exhalation. There is a very natural pause that happens at the bottom of the exhalation, and somewhat at the top of the inhalation as well. So let's start to circle around at the ankle. And again, noticing your posture, noticing the tension in your jaw and your neck. Are you trying to hold your leg up with your shoulders? Release and reverse and turn in the opposite direction. Okay, so we get that ankle joint kind of warmed up a little bit. So let's bring that heel back down to the floor. Take your hands to your chair, right alongside your hips, right about level with where your hips are. And this is just to help maintain the integrity of your spine. So sometimes we're not aware that we're starting to kind of lose that nice extension in the spine. So this is just to keep the spine in integrity. I'm going to keep that left foot on the floor. And what we're going to do now is engage the belly muscles and then lift the right foot off the floor, bring that heel under the chair as far as it'll go, and then extend it. So we're just bending and extending, simple bending and extending. Now for some people, this is really easy, no problem, especially if you don't have any issues with your knee or your hip, your back. For those of us who are working with a little bit of an issue, this can be quite a challenge. So just notice what that's like for you. If you need to rest at any point, you can just kind of put your foot on the floor, give it a little bit of rest, maybe for a breath or two, and then let's go back to that extending and bending. And you might hear some noise. So for some people, again, there can be some noise in the knee. It can be kind of a crackling or a popping kind of noise, and pretty much noise without pain is okay. Okay, next time you bend your knee and you have your foot underneath as far as it'll go, bring your toes to the floor, and then see if you can kind of slide or walk your foot back a little bit farther underneath your chair. Wow, I'm feeling that right here in my thigh and then around the knee. Again, some of you might need a little more, so you might need to pull your foot back a little bit farther. For some, it might be a little kind of on the edge. I'm right on my edge. If I were to go back a little farther, that wouldn't work for me. So I'm just going to stay here and I'm going to lengthen through my spine. I'm going to press my heel toward the floor. So see if you can keep your toes on the floor. Press the heel toward the floor. It's quite likely not going to get there. If your foot is back far enough under your chair that you're feeling a stretch here in your thigh, you're not going to get your heel on the floor. If you did, you'd have a serious problem with your ankle. So we wouldn't want that. So now continue to deepen your breathing as you notice. Right, so the first thing that happens when I'm feeling that intense stretch here in my thigh is my breath becomes kind of shallow because it's a little disruptive. It's a little bit stressful for my body. So now I'm going to shift into that full deep breathing. And the amazing thing that starts to happen is that intense feeling of stretch I had here in the thigh a moment ago starts to get a little bit less. So I'm actually controlling my response to the stress that I'm putting on my body. And I'm saying stress in a positive way. So I'm putting some stress here to stretch, but I'm controlling my response to that stress by shifting into a deeper breath. That's all I'm doing. I haven't moved my leg. I haven't gotten away from the stretch. I'm still where I am, but I'm breathing more deeply. And if you're also having that experience where you are not feeling as intense a stretch here in this leg, see if you can walk your toes back a little bit farther. If you're still having a really intense experience there, just stay where you are. And if it's too much, bring your foot out a little bit. And once you get to a place where, once again, you can feel that stretch or that added response here in the thigh, notice if your breath has gotten shallow. See if you can shift back into that full deep breath. Breathing in and out fully and deeply has a huge effect on your nervous system. It brings you into more of a parasympathetic response, which is the relaxation response. And that's what we're trying to do here, is just generate that relaxation response. Let's take one more breath here, in and out. Great. And then you can take that leg and kind of extend it out in front. Have your heel on the floor, your toes reaching up toward the ceiling. And pull the toes as close to the shin as they'll go. So that means we're really working the muscles up here in the front of the shin and across the front of the ankle. Take both hands and place them on your left knee. Inhale and lengthen through your spine. And as you exhale, you're going to hinge forward from your hips. So it's from way down here where your leg comes into your hip. You're going to come forward like you're trying to bring your belly button down onto your hands, right? And then come all the way back up. So let's do this as we breathe, and you can breathe in and out slowly. So for me, it takes a whole inhalation to go forward and come up, and then a whole exhalation to go forward and then come up. So if you're breathing nice and slowly, see if you can get the whole movement in on an inhalation and the whole movement in on an exhalation. And 2 more times, we're going to come forward and up. Great. Excellent. And when you finish that second time, we're going to stay upright and we're going to rotate the whole leg in and out. So to the big toe side and the little toe side. If you look at your leg, it's like a big windshield wiper. Now, if you're having most of your movement at the ankle, you're going to come up here with your hands, take the saddle of your hand. That's where your thumb and your index finger come together. You're going to put the saddle of your hand right up at the hip crease and see if you can feel some movement up there. We want to try and pull the movement up into this part of the leg more than at the ankle, because your ankle can do a lot of work, but the goal here is to try and get it up into the hip itself. So a couple more of these. Looks great. And then we're going to bring that foot straight up toward the ceiling. Once again, with the hands alongside the body. Spine is nice and tall. Breath is smooth and round. We're going to lift and lower that heel from the floor. Lifting and lowering the heel from the floor. Breathing in and breathing out. Now, if you're lifting so high that your body has to do this, or you have to lean back, that's not what we're going for. So we're really going for these hip flexor muscles and these quadriceps muscles here. That's the muscles in the front of your thigh and that cross over to your hip. We're just trying to use those muscles. So you can see I'm not really lifting my foot very high to get the full effect here. Not when I concentrate, right? And the next time that you lift, we're going to hold and breathe and press out through your heel, pull back on your toes, lengthen through your spine, and notice your breath. Has it gotten a little shallow? Has it gotten a little choppy or out of round? Like, are you holding it in some way? Are you trying to breathe in more deeply than out? So when we breathe in more deeply, we're stimulating that fight or flight energy. When we breathe out more deeply, we're stimulating that relaxation response. And notice I haven't said how long we're going to hold. So are you thinking, when are we going to let this go? And that probably is having an effect on your breath as well. So how about we hold for 2 more really full deep breaths. There's 1. And 2. And lower that heel back down. Beautiful job, you guys. Let's bend that leg and give that thigh a bit of a massage. You can give it a little squeeze, or you can tap a little bit. You can even rub a little bit. So whatever feels good. Come right up into the hip. Don't forget the hip itself. So you want to get right up there because we were doing some work there as well. Okay, we're going to continue on with this right side. So let's do this. Let's scoot your backside over to the right side of your chair, enough that you can get your right leg off the chair. Your right cheek is kind of off the chair. And then we're going to walk that heel and toe way out to the side. So what we're trying to gain here is about a 90-degree angle from your right knee to your left knee. You should have about 90 degrees, or kind of going in that direction. Now, some of us are going to be able to go farther than that. So if you can, do that. And some of us are not going to get near 90 just because of our anatomy, and that's okay too. So watch that your torso hasn't gone over to the right. So if your body is facing the right, I'm going to ask you to turn your torso back to the left. Okay, so you're facing forward here, and it's that right leg that's going out to the side. Now engage the muscles in the side of your thigh and in the side of your hip, and pull that knee toward the wall behind you. So I'm pulling this way. You guys are going to pull that way. So you're going to pull that knee toward the wall behind you. Breathe in and breathe out. Good. Okay, keep pulling that knee toward the wall behind you. And then we're going to take the right elbow and forearm, and we're going to bring that right elbow and forearm right down onto the thigh. Now you're resting here. Breathing in and out. We're going to raise that left arm all the way up and then all the way down. So breathe in and out. You can do it like a wave if you like, coming up past your head, or you can go straight up toward the ceiling. If you have some limitation in your shoulder, you can go forward. You can just bring it forward. A lot of folks have some difficulty getting the arm up above the shoulder. So we're just going to do the best we can with this. So whatever shoulder mobility is available to you this morning, let's use that. We never want to go into a place of pain, but discomfort is okay. So discomfort is okay. Okay, let's go one more time up overhead, and we're going to hold it up here. So reach, and now see if you can get your hands straight up toward the ceiling, all right? So if you're way over here with your hands, see if you can extend the elbow and go straight up toward the ceiling. Yeah, and reach up a little more, and imagine somebody is coming along and just very gently taking hold of your wrist and pulling you up. So we're getting a nice stretch there. Breathing in and breathing out. Let's take 2 more breaths here. Great. With your next exhalation, you're going to release that arm all the way down. Beautiful. Now rotate forward and come all the way forward and up. Beautiful. Let's take that right foot. We're going to walk it all the way back to center. Okay. And I have lost my video feed, so give me one moment. Sorry about that, guys. Okay, so now that we're seated back at the center of the chair, extend both of your legs, point your toes, really extend, and notice now if your right leg is longer than your left. So hopefully you can see a little difference here on the right side and the left side. All right, let's equal things out a little bit. So bend the knees once again, and we're going to take the left leg, extend it out, have your heel on the floor, and squeeze and extend the toes. So we're starting here, squeezing and extending toes. Breathing in and breathing out. And notice this foot. Is it different? Does it work differently than the other? Are the toes on this foot in a different condition, a different shape? Quite often, most of us have one foot that's a little bit larger than the other, and we don't notice it so much unless we start to pay attention. So we'll either buy shoes that fit the larger foot and they're a little bit loose on the smaller foot, or we'll buy shoes that fit the smaller foot and we're a little cramped in the larger foot. So if we do if we buy the shoes that are a little bit smaller, we can develop hammer toes or bunions on the larger foot. All right, let's start to point and flex the foot, paying attention to the spine, noticing the breath. So I didn't mention it when we were squeezing and releasing the toes, but now that we're pointing and flexing, what's happening in your breath? Can you go back to that round, smooth breathing? And then let's start to circle at the ankle. Breathe in, breathe out. And reverse direction. Excellent. And then let's bring that heel back down to the floor. Take your hands alongside your hips on the chair. And we're going to make sure that the spine stays nice and tall here as we bend and extend this knee. So left side, notice, is it different than the right side? And the answer to that for most of us is, yeah, there's at least a little bit of a difference. For some of us, there's a big difference. Excuse me, if you've had a knee replacement or having some issues with your knee, you're not going to get as much range in that knee joint. So you might not be able to bring the foot quite so far underneath your chair. Maybe that was the case on the other side. So let's do this just a couple more times. Good. And the next time that your foot comes underneath your chair, let's put the toes on the floor. Okay, and then let's see if we can walk the toes underneath until you feel a bit of a stretch there. Okay, and now try to get your heel a little closer to the floor as you keep your toes there, right? So this is me a little bit more relaxed. I don't know if you can see this knee. I'll put my hand here so you can see. So as soon as I pull my heel toward the floor, you can see how far my leg goes down, right? My knee. Now this is my knee without the heel reaching toward the floor. And this is my knee with the heel reaching toward the floor. So there's a bit of a difference here. Now on this side, I've kind of run into the railing on my chair. So I'm as far back as I can go. I'm not having the same experience I did on the other side. The other side, I couldn't get anywhere near that. So we're gonna breathe in and out and notice the breath. So I'm managing my response to what I'm feeling in this leg, whether it's an intense kind of feeling or just a more moderate or kind of minimal kind of feeling. I can moderate my response to that by changing my breathing. When I slow my breathing down, allow it to get a little bit deeper, I have a different relationship to the discomfort here now. It doesn't feel quite so bad. It doesn't feel quite so intense. I don't want to use the word bad because that's a judgment call. So it's maybe not as intense. So if that's the case for you, if the sensation of stretch here is not as intense, you might walk your foot rather underneath your chair a little bit more. See if you can get a little farther under there and see if you can create a little bit more intensity. So the muscles and the tissue in this leg are responding to your breathing, not directly, but through the nervous system. So the muscles and the tendons and the tissue here in this leg, when they hit their stretch, they send a signal to the nervous system. That makes you breathe a little more shallowly. If I can reverse that, start to breathe a little bit more deeply, that connects back to the nervous system and that tells the muscles, oh, this is okay. Nothing bad's gonna happen here. This is just something unfamiliar. We don't generally stretch like this, so that's why it's uncomfortable. And then everything kind of calms down a little bit. So that's broad application to lots of places in your life where you might feel stressed or anxious. Let's take one more full deep breath in and out here. Great, and then we're gonna take that leg and we're gonna straighten that knee, bring your heel to the floor. So now we've got the left leg extended with the heel on the floor. The toes are reaching up toward your shin, as close to your shin as they can get, right? So that means you got to really engage the muscles here in the front of the lower leg in order to get the toes up that way. And now if you take the saddle of your left hand, so that's your thumb and your index finger, and you're going to place it right up there on that hip crease. This is where we're going to be bending from. So you can take your right hand to your knee. We're going to come forward and come back. Right? So if you can feel that movement right here in your hip, you got it. You can take that left hand and place it on top of the right one. And as you come forward, it's like you're trying to bring your belly button, your navel, right down onto your hands. That looks wonderful, you guys. So slow and steady. See if you can take a breath in and out to get forward. And again, a breath in and out to get backwards. We tend to operate in momentum. We generally have one speed. It's the speed that we're most comfortable at. So what our yoga practice invites us to do is to notice that we have different speeds, right? I can speed things up, I can slow things down. Don't often feel like I have that kind of agency in all areas of my life. So again, this could have some broad applications to the rest of your life. Where are you going too fast? Where are you not going fast enough? And can you tell the difference, right? Because sometimes it's so familiar, we forget. So the next time you're in an upright position, we're gonna hold here. Good. And now we're gonna take that whole leg and rotate from the hip. Again, you can take the saddle of your hand, place it right up there in that hip crease, and make sure you can feel a little bit of movement here. It's the top part of the leg and the outside of the leg that you'll feel something. You'll feel your muscles engaging, or you'll feel the effect of the bone rotating in the socket, your leg bone rotating in the socket. And notice your breathing. Is your breath a little shallow? Has it gone out around? See if you can go back to that nice, smooth, round breath. Great. And the next time that your toes are straight up toward the ceiling, we're gonna hold here, hands alongside the chair, alongside your hips on the chair, once again, just to see if we can maintain that spine, because we do tend to lean forward a bit. We're gonna engage the belly muscles and lift and lower that heel. So once again, notice if by lifting and lowering the heel, if you need to lean back to do that, because I can lift way up here if I lean back, well, but I can't lift too far if I keep my spine in integrity, right? I can also lift higher if I allow myself to round. Again, that's not what we're going for. We're really trying to work the hip flexors and these quadriceps muscles here. These muscles are so important for your ability to navigate life in general, going up and down stairs, getting up and out of up and down from a chair, from the sofa, in and out of the car, on and off the toilet, in and out of the shower, all kinds of things, in and out of bed even, right? So the next time that you raise your heel up off the floor, hold it here and keep your toes reaching toward your shin. Now notice we've put some stress into the body again, right? So you might be feeling the effects of that stress. You might be feeling your heartbeat a little bit more. It might be a little more challenging to breathe in a smooth, round fashion. You might be feeling a little bit of burning or a little bit of trembling in the muscles here in the thigh, especially if your thigh muscles haven't gotten a lot of strength training recently. So let's see if we can hold here for 3 more breaths. And these are long, slow, deep breaths in and out. There's 1. And 2. Last breath, you guys. Really hold here, pull the toes toward the shin. And 3 as you lower all the way down. Nice job. Let's take a little moment here to massage that thigh. Don't forget the hip. So again, you can do a little squeeze, or you can do a little tapping, maybe with the side of your hands, kind of that chopping movement. You could even make fists and do it that way. Nice. Okay, and now we're going to scoot over to the left side of the chair. Once again, have your left cheek sort of off the edge a little bit. And now you want to keep your right heel underneath your right knee and keep your body facing that right leg, okay? So don't let yourself turn to the left. We're going to take that left leg and walk it out to the left. So we're trying to get as great an angle as we can between the right knee and the left knee. So 90 degrees is kind of where we're going. If you're not quite at 90 or you're a little more than 90, that's okay. So just go where you can. Remember, keep your body facing forward, and we're going to engage the muscles here in the outside of that left hip and the outside of the left thigh, and we're going to pull that knee toward the back wall. So you got to hold this contraction in the outside of the hip the whole time, you guys. Don't let it go. Hold that contraction. Take your left elbow and forearm, place it down on that thigh. We're kind of leaning into that thigh, right? So keep your chest open. If you're like this, if your shoulder has rolled forward, you want to keep that shoulder open and up as we take that right arm up and overhead. and then all the way back down. Breathing in and breathing out. Slow, easy movement. So we're getting a little bit of movement in that shoulder joint. If you've got some limitation on this side, if your shoulder doesn't want to go up like that, you can go forward. And if it doesn't even go that high, that's okay. You can go forward way down here. So what I find is as I come up, if I rotate my palm forward and up, that gives me a little more comfort in my range. Now you might try that. The next time your arm is up overhead, let's hold it here. So if you've been going out past your ear, I want you to come straight up toward the ceiling. And again, you might imagine somebody coming around and just gently grasping your wrist and pulling you up a little bit more, just pulling you up, pulling you up, pulling you up. Breathe in, breathe out. Beautiful, and then we're gonna let that go. Take that right hand to the thigh. We're gonna kind of roll the body forward to the right and then push off from your right hand and come all the way up. And let me just say this. So I don't like coming up from this position from the side because we're a little bit twisted and we're a little bit compromised in the side of the body. That's why I like putting the hands here and rotating forward. Now I'm straight on, I can push up and it's a lot safer for my spine. So let's take this left leg now. We're gonna walk it back in. Scoot your backside to the center of your chair. Come right up close to the front edge. Extend both legs, point your toes. Walk those toes out as far as they'll go. Okay, and notice now, hopefully your legs are the same length. When you look at your toes, hopefully they're nice and even now, as opposed to one being longer than the other. Okay, let's bend the knees and bring the feet underneath the hips once again. All right, so we've done a fair amount of work kind of getting things warmed up and opened up in the lower part of the body. So let's do a little work for the upper body. Take your hands and let's squeeze and extend the fingers. Squeezing and extending fingers. And be gentle with yourself. So if you've got some joints in your hands that are not really grooving on this too much, don't do a whole lot there. So sometimes we do little things that aggravate the joints. Sometimes the weather, where it's been really humid, the weather can affect your joints. If you've got a little bit of arthritis in there, which most of us do, after a certain age, we all get a little bit of arthritis in our hands. Okay, just a couple more, breathing in and breathing out. And then let's extend the arms. So keep your elbows straight if you can, and we're gonna bring the fingers down and up. And breathe in and breathe out. And once again, just noticing. So if your wrist is a little cranky this morning, just work with it in the best way that you can. If you're holding your arms up with your shoulders, see if you can drop your shoulders away from your ears. If you're holding your arms up with your jaw, like clenching, create a little space between your upper teeth and your lower teeth and see if that helps your arms to relax a little bit. And then let's circle at the wrists. So do you recognize this movement? This is pretty much exactly what we did with the feet. Right? We work the toes and we work the pointing and flexing the foot, and now we're working the ankle and then reverse. So same thing. Great. Okay, now turn your palms straight up and have your upper arms, keep them parallel to the floor if you can. So in other words, you don't want them way down here and you don't want them way up here. You want them right about a little bit lower than shoulder height. Now we're gonna work these muscles here, the biceps muscles, as we bend and tap the shoulders and then extend. So we're bending and extending, breathing in and breathing out. So again, if we kind of correlate this to the lower body, same movement that we did at the knee. If you remember, we had the knee under the foot coming underneath the chair because we were bending the knee. The next time that you tap your shoulders, let's hold here. And we're gonna bring the elbows out to the sides. And then imagine you've got little weights in your hands. So you might make some light fists here. We're gonna squeeze these muscles right up here in the top part of the arm. Those are your biceps muscles. So we're gonna work the biceps really slowly as we extend and then bend. So again, it's like you've got weights in your hands and you can do 3 pounds, 5 pounds, 40 pounds, whatever you feel is appropriate for you this morning, right? So just kind of imagining the weight in your hands, helping to create those nice strong muscles. Let's do a few more of these, breathing in and breathing out. Great. And the next time your hands are on your shoulders, let's stay here. You can release your little fists, maybe let your fingers rest here. And we're gonna paddle the elbows like we're doing a kayak, right? So we're kind of going around like you're paddling in a kayak. Great, and get the elbows lifted. So as you rotate forward and around, really lift those elbows. And then let's reverse the direction there. So we're going backwards, we're kayaking backwards. Breathing in and breathing out. Notice your breath. Is it smooth? Is it choppy? Has it changed? Did you forget about it? I know I forget about my breath when I'm doing something that's kind of new and interesting. Okay, and then let's release and relax that. Let's roll the shoulders forward, up, back, and down a couple of times. All right, and then let your hands rest on your lap. Close your eyes for a moment. And just notice what your arms and hands and shoulders and elbows all feel like. And let your breath slowly deepen. Okay, let your eyes gently open if they've been closed. And with your next exhalation, gently drop your chin down toward your chest. And simply hold here. So let the muscles in the back of your neck relax. Let the space between your shoulder blades relax. Feel the weight of your head. So the weight of your head is creating attraction for the muscles in the back of your neck. Breathing in and out, releasing and relaxing. With your next inhalation, raise your chin up off your chest, and then as you exhale, turn and look out over your right shoulder and hold here as you breathe. So we're just breathing in and breathing out and keeping that head turned. Try not to turn your whole body. So if you've got your shoulders kind of twisted, bring your shoulders back into alignment. We're just trying to stretch that neck a little bit. Nice, smooth, easy breathing. Slowly bringing the head back to center. We're going to turn and look out over the opposite shoulder. So once again, it's just the neck and the head that's turned. It's not the upper body. It's not the shoulders. Breathing in and breathing out. Coming back to center. Dropping the chin to the chest. Let's just take a breath in and out as we hold here. And with your next inhalation, you're going to raise your head up. And this time, drop your right ear toward your right shoulder. So as you drop your right ear to your right shoulder, we're going to hold here. So your nose is still facing forward. We're just dropping the ear toward the shoulder. And then you're going to take your left hand off of your lap and let it hang down by your side. Now imagine there are little weights on the ends of your fingers. And those little weights are creating some traction. They're pulling the fingers down toward the floor. And just to give it a little bit more oomph here, we're going to take the right hand and place it on top of the shoulder. So find the place where the neck and the shoulder kind of come together and go right down onto that shoulder top. There should be a bit of a, call it my golf ball up here, right? So for most of us, there's a thickening of the muscle here. So you're just going to, with your fingers, you're just going to press down. You're giving a little bit of an assist to pulling that shoulder away from the ear. And as you're pressing down, see if you can pull it forward. So it's down and forward a little bit. Breathe in, breathe out. Relax your jaw, your neck. Relax your shoulders, feel the weights on the ends of your left fingers. Breathe in, breathe out. Now, as you're doing all of this, keeping your ear on your shoulder, you're gonna rotate your head so your nose moves down toward the floor, and then rotate your head so that your nose goes up toward the sky. So we're rotating the head down and rotating the head up. Breathing in and breathing out. So you still have those weights on the ends of your fingers. You've still got that pressure on the shoulder with your right hand. Your right ear is close to your right shoulder, and you're breathing in and breathing out. All these things simultaneously. And one more time, we're gonna do this little movement here with the head. So keep the ear on the shoulder, don't lift your head. Good. And then take your right hand off of your shoulder. Take your left fingers to your lap. And now really slowly raise your head back up to center. Now, when you get back up to center, you might close your eyes for a moment or just kind of sit quietly for a moment, focusing on your breath. Notice if the right side of your neck feels a little shorter than the left side of your neck. You might feel your left shoulder a little bit lower than your right shoulder. You might even feel your right arm and left arm different lengths. So actually, let's drop the arms by the sides. Notice if your left fingertips feel like they're closer to the floor than your right fingertips. Okay, then let's take the hands back to the lap, and we're gonna just drop that left ear to the left shoulder. Letting the muscles in the right side of your neck relax and lengthen. Breathing in and breathing out. So you might notice the first reaction to this movement, especially if you have tightness in your neck. My first reaction is for my breath to get a little shallow because, hey, I'm not in this position a lot. What is going on here? This is a little bit uncomfortable. So I'm going to shift into that nice, long, slow, deep breathing. And see if I can communicate to my muscles through my nervous system that all is well. I can hang out here and nothing bad is going to happen. So now that I'm here for a couple of breaths, a couple of cycles of breath, I'm going to just take the right hand, bring it off of the lap and let the fingers reach toward the floor. And imagine now you've got weights on the fingertips and those fingertips are pulling down toward the floor. So don't actively reach down there, but just kind of feel the weights. So if you can kind of imagine that. Breathing in and breathing out, long, slow, deep breaths. Let's take the left hand now. We're going to bring the left hand up to where the golf balls are generally, in that shoulder, right below where the neck is. And just press down gently with your fingers and then pull forward. So again, it's pressing down and kind of pulling forward a little bit. So that's a stretch for some of those neck muscles that get super tight up there. Many of us have this. And keeping your left ear as close to your left shoulder as you can, we're going to do that little rotation with the head. So rotating the nose down toward the floor and then up toward the ceiling. Checking in with your breath and making sure your breath is smooth and round. That's a wonderful thing about using breath as your governor. You can check in and make an adjustment on the fly, which is so nice. And you don't lose any ground when you do this. Everything is incremental here. So each time I notice that my breath is kind of shallow, I have the opportunity to change that. And it's so interesting because that's really what's at the heart of feeling empowered, right? That I can change something if I don't like the way it's going. And sometimes I can't change anything about what's going on around me, but I can always change my breathing. And when I move into that slow, long, deep breathing, I am calming my nervous system, regardless of what's happening in the world around me. It doesn't matter what's happening in the world around me if I have control of my own responses. Great. just a couple more of these. Okay, and then keeping that ear close to the shoulder still, we're going to take the left hand, place it back on the lap. We're going to take the right hand, place it up on the right leg, and then really slowly raise your head back up to center. Take a moment, maybe close your eyes. Notice now if the right side of your neck feels a little longer than the left, or if it feels imbalanced. And then release your hands from your lap, let them hang down by your sides. You notice if your arms feel like they're the same length. And take your hands, place them back on your thighs or on your lap, and bring your feet a little wider than your hips. Let's take some breaths in and out. Notice your hands, your arms, your elbows, your upper arms, shoulders, your neck, your back, maybe even your chest. And then as you breathe in and out, we're simply going to come forward and backward. And lean as far back as you can so you feel your belly muscles working, and then we're going to come forward. Keep your back nice and straight. So the movement, if you wanted to take the saddle part of your hands and place it down here in the hip creases, you want to feel that movement there. So that means when I lean forward, the space in that hip crease is less. And when I move back, the space in that hip crease is greater. There's not a lot of flexion in the spine here. Good, just one more forward and back, you guys. Great. Excellent. Coming back to that center position, walk your feet closer together. Take a deep breath in and lengthen through your spine. Take your left hand to the outside of your right knee. Take your right hand, reach around to either the seat of your chair or the back of your chair, however far back you can go, right? And then sit up really tall. So we're not twisting quite yet. We're still in this forward position. We just have the hand back there. Breathe in as you lengthen, and then as you breathe out, you're going to lead with your head. So turn your head first, and then your neck, your shoulders, your upper back, your mid back, and twist as far around as you can. Now, don't push into your left hand. That's just there to kind of guide you a little bit. Breathing in and breathing out, keeping the spine nice and tall. And then to unwind, let's again start with the head. So bring your head back to center, and then let your shoulders and your upper back and your mid back and your lower back unwind. Take your hands, place them back on your lap for a moment. Okay, take your right hand to the outside of your left knee. Take your left hand, bring it around behind you to the chair. So once again, we're not twisting yet. We're still in this forward position. We just have the arm back there. Breathe in and lengthen through your spine. And as you breathe out, lead with your head, turn to the left, then your neck and your shoulders, your upper back, your mid back and low back. And again, you're not pressing into that left knee with your right hand. It's just there as a little bit of a guide. And you're also not pulling with your left hand behind you. If your hand is on the chair, you don't want to be pulling. Breathe in, breathe out. And then once again, leading with the head, turn the head back to center. And then the shoulders, the upper back, mid back, lower back. Beautiful. Okay. So take a moment now to make yourself comfortable. We're going to end with a little meditation. So if you want to sit back into your chair, use the back of your chair, you can. Your back muscles have been working quite a bit here in this session. So if that feels more comfortable, go ahead and do that. Get a drink of water if you feel like you need a drink of water, or get something to be comfortable. And when you've taken care of all of that, close your eyes. And return your attention to your breath. Watch the way air moves in and out of your body. Know that there's nothing you need to do right now. No place you need to be. The only thing that's important in this moment is the movement of air in and out of your body. And of the 20,000 some odd breaths that you take every day, you rarely notice any of them. And yet it is the single most important function in your body. Without breath, there is no life. We give far more attention to our food than to our breath. And the fact is, you could go weeks without food if you needed to, if you had to. But you can't go more than a few moments without breath. Some people have trained themselves to be able to hold their breath for several minutes, but that's not most of us. So isn't it interesting that we pay more attention to food than to breath? And yet breath is more essential to life than food is. So now begin to deepen each breath in and out. Let your body soften into the breath, letting go of tension in your jaw and your neck, releasing your shoulders, letting them come down away from your ears, relaxing your fingers, your hands, your wrists. Notice your tongue. Is your tongue up on the roof of your mouth? Can you let it just rest comfortably in the bottom of your mouth? Can you create some space between your upper teeth and lower teeth? Do you have a perpetual squint? So a lot of us furrow the brow. We kind of have this constant contraction of the muscles around the eyes. See if you can soften the eyes. One way to do that is to imagine your eyes smiling. I know that might sound a little bit weird, but if you think about the corners of your eyes lifting up as opposed to down, that can actually affect the musculature around your eyes. And as you feel the corners of your eyes coming into a smile, you might even feel the corners of your lips coming into a smile. So it's the same thing. That little lift in the corners of your mouth brings attention to how you hold the muscles and the tension in your mouth and around your mouth. Breathing in and breathing out, smooth and deep, letting the belly and the rib cage expand with every breath in and letting it gently contract with every breath out. As you breathe in and out, thoughts may try to intrude. You might just acknowledge that a thought is happening and then let it go. The goal here is not to shut down all thought, it's just to not become attached to your thoughts. And know that this kind of focus on your breath, this is something you can do anytime. Whether you're feeling stressed or you're anticipating a stressful situation. I find it very helpful to do this for about 5 or 10 minutes, maybe 2 or 3 times a day. Just kind of sitting quietly. And it's always nice to build this in, to build a habit of noticing your breathing when you're shifting gears. So between one activity and the next, right? So I'm going from maybe doing some vacuuming and I'm going to go do some laundry. So between those two activities, I'm going to sit for about 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes, and just notice my breath. Just brings a different quality of awareness to my entire life. Take your right hand and place it at the center of your chest, and then cover your right hand with your left. And feel the chest moving underneath your hands. And then take a deep breath in and let it out with a sigh. Ah. And then perhaps bringing the palms of your hands together in an expression of gratitude, taking a moment to just acknowledge all of the gifts you have in your life, those things that you have worked hard to achieve, and those things that have come to you without any effort. And taking this gratitude with you into the rest of your day. Thank you, everybody.